In terms of their reading skills and their language learning and still feeling and awareness, brain research is really added to this through rubbing to the brain, looking through the weed. And dyslexia, and since instances with short reading, we know that we are brilliant in probing all the possibilities to understand the words that are made up of sounds, and those sounds, how they have representation in a way that they have counterparts in the ranges. So it can become very difficult for a jard in understanding that a word that sounds like one continuous sound, like cat and dog, is actually made out of three sounds joined together in a seamless way that you would hardly know that they're infected in sand. So these three letters, D-U-T, indica away dyslexia and most troubles connecting sounds that make up words with the letters that represent sounds and symbols that represent other things. And the unit of it all. So with this complicated genius and the nothing in the brain designed to learn to repeat, and our brains learn to read in this ransom, quite significant withdrawn way that is designed for other things, and these same mechanisms that we use when we read, which is accessing the sound representation of the language, and that area in the brain is and thought with it, and is becoming directly through the dome, and is integrated in the back of the brain, and helps us recognize the words that we then at some point are recognizing with the oral part of the tempetus, the representation of words, and after we see the certain bar and the number of tens, then we standard when it and it moves to the other part of the brain that helps us visually support and realize what they saying. And what's song and sounds and the words that we recognize almost wrap a picture. In fact, the area of the brain and that we used. We see the pictures in our visual environment that are becoming hijacked by the high reading. And initially reading because it discourages the move over and uses the other part of the brain that helps us recognize the new boot. And that a lack of the part and is made out of from different disposable parts that are flexing different components. So key takeaways, right? Reading uses different parts of the brain to sound out unfamiliar words, recognizing familiar words by sight, thinking about how to pronounce the words. When we study children and adults with dyslexia, we find that some of these areas aren't activated quite the same way. And some people who don't have dyslexia, they image the research and skill, inside view of the motor brain, struggling with the reading, and it's a massive opportunity to show all the adults that have difficulties with reading, whether they're giving some tutoring, that the skills that they need to sound out the what are lavender and better fueled with prenups. So very explicitly and in an instructing way, they're showing us all the rules of the phonetics and understanding what and the structures and how it relates to the written patterns and the counterparts of the methods. We show children in a structured way and the braintastic way how to hold the words that are really a key component to a successful intervention in society. And once you understand who and how, all the relationships between different sounds and letters, you can read in medicine time with more fluid rambutan and not just the dip in your skills and personal middling and experiences, continuous again and again, tooling with the visual word talent learning, then the practice gives you an with the Wiesendau. And flirt and do whatever makes you happy, always knowing that all the things that we focus on trying to train the eye movement control uh, that changes our ability to rest down And the key takeaway for this is the interactive dyslexia intervention teaching with the sounds and letters and various instructions with these ways struggling leaders that we haven't seen before. We focus on things like balance or eye movement. And really, at the heart of this DEX is a mapping of language and tract skill, which is addressed in the given part of this song. And it's accessed through the areas of the brain, and now, after the intervention, is giving an increase in the capability, compensating the coping out mechanisms of the flattened craw. And the mechanism and tool is perhaps wiser in a way well, to conclude. Scientists look at these brain changes and are mapping the point supports, the wider areas of the connected spheres of using a drone. And the research that has been used statically, wise and bland, what is it about? Is it the divine intervention that we were talking? Researchers are using this brain imagery to understand how to construct literature for people with accept and dick slap their cheek, and how valuable the brain is, really, in several different ways, with these attributes changing quite dramatically through the process. People who are dependent, people who never learned to read. So reading itself is a process of change in the brain. And the other thing we can do in the room is change whole and adult with all adults. You can't make it any more obvious, can you? The brain is still changing in ways that support those skills to make you a better reader for the key takeaways that are very changeable. Even adults with dyslexia can change their brains to become better readers of all of this. And what we are also starting to see with this type of infection is the focus on other skills that you have, and maybe even the enhancements